I'm not afraid to hold up my hands and say I was wrong about one battle after another. Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for sparing your time out to hear my thoughts on One Battle After Another, which is directed and written by Paul Thomas Anderson. Now, with this director, I have been very mixed on his filmography. Now, I have seen Licorice Pizza, Boogie Nights, There Will Be Blood, and now One Battle After Another. My favourite out of the lot of them was Boogie Nights, but now it is One Battle After Another. Yeah, I was wrong. I went into this movie thinking 2 hours and 42-minute runtime. Why does the movie need to be this long? Is it just going to drag on its heel and be a pretentious project? Well, turns out I had a damn good time with this movie. So let's get into what it's all around. One Battle After Another tells the story of Bob Ferguson, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. He's part of the French 75, a revolutionary group. After him and Teyana Taylor's character, Perfida Hills, have a baby named Willa, he decides to hang up his boots and in this time get intoxicated and also on drugs. Because of this, when his daughter years later gets kidnapped, he's got to remember his skills as part of a revolutionary group to get back his daughter. Firstly, let me address the big elephant in the room, the runtime. Now, normally movies of nowadays, when they have a runtime of 2 hours and 40, 3 hours, 3 hours 15, I'll be quite frank, a lot of the time it does generally put me off. Or I may catch a showing of it when it gets on streaming digital release, because I can maybe have like a bathroom break, I can be in the right mindset and mood to check it out, which I know it does eliminate the cinema experience, which I am an advocate for, but at times certain movies I do feel I don't need to see on the big screen. When it comes to One Battle After Another, I would say check this out on the big screen because the pacing is fantastic. This generally had a really great pacing to the point where it's relentless, but in a good way. It doesn't just throw anything at the wall and hope that it sticks. It actually gives you a compelling story and narrative where you're sometimes on edge. Sometimes you want to root for this character and you also want to see the journey of how to get to one place to another, to another, to another, etc. And I was absolutely all on board for it. Now, it's not a perfect movie. There is a few issues I do have, which I'll touch on a little bit later in the review. But firstly, in terms of the positives, Leonardo DiCaprio as Bob Ferguson does a really good job. I mean, he's a well-established actor, so you would expect that from him. And also the cast of Benicio del Toro. You got Sean Penn as Stephen Lockjaw, who is an absolute comedian in terms of his performance. He is detestable, but he also has a lot of funny humor and lines. He goes very ham with the role, and in that essence, he does a really good job. Benicio del Toro is very likable and also gives a very good supporting cast role, including Alana Haim, who is in here very briefly, and Teyana Taylor, and also Chase Infiniti, who plays a supporting role of Willa, who has more to do in the third act of One Battle After Another. Performances all around are good. Cinematography is captured really well, especially there's a big chase sequence in the third act I really enjoyed. It is shot on Vista Vision, so it's really cool to see that cinematography style being captured once again in 2025, and it does make for some really interesting shots, including how a lot of this movie is filmed in like one takes, wide angles. I really did appreciate the cinematography. The music is done by Johnny Greenwood, who has scored a few movies of PTA's before, including Phantom Thread, There Will Be Blood, and of course One Battle After Another, just to name a few. Now, in terms of the music, I really enjoyed it for most part. I definitely felt at times, at certain sequences with the long musical numbers, really fitted in, like tonally, whether it was a tense moment, whether it was like a comic relief moment, whether it was our characters just on a journey where Leonardo DiCaprio, for example, is just rushing through alleyways and streets and houses. It was entertaining to watch. This movie overall is just a fun joyride of a movie which I really did not expect to see. So I have a lot of positives for One Battle After Another. In terms of nitpicks and negatives I have a few. What I've mentioned before about the music, I do feel that the music at times came across a little bit pretentious. What I mean by that is certain sequences felt like it had this really jam-packed music when I felt like that moment could have just had no music and let it play for more suspense or tension-filled moment, or even just a little bit of downtime with the character. There's music on top of music on top of music. It's non-stop. I appreciate it makes you think about a musical soundtrack and score where you can remember, and they clearly want you to remember the music, which they do a good job. But again, there was one or two songs here I felt like could have been cut. The runtime, I would say I would have trimmed about 5 minutes off here. And I say this because, not the fact of pacing issues, but more so the ending. Now, don't get me wrong, when the ending happened, I found it hilarious. I generally laughed out loud. This movie does have some good comedic moments, but the ending I felt would have been more effective inside of the vehicle than actually what happens. It makes sense why it happens, but I just feel like we could have maybe skipped that part altogether and just kind of ended the movie at that point, which would have been a little bit more solid. The final nitpick I do have is regarding the character of Teyana Taylor, which I feel like a lot of people may have. She's in the movie for about the first 30-40 minutes, plays a huge role, and just sort of a spoiler, she isn't in the movie after that, which I felt was pretty redundant, also kind of lackluster, because she's a very important and integral part, but she's not in for the rest of the movie, which I felt was a little bit weak. But besides that, that's main negatives I have. Not really many. Is this going to be a movie I'm going to watch time and time again? For me personally, no, but I can appreciate it was a great movie. It took me by surprise, and I had a great time. So I would give it a 4 stars out of 5. But have you seen One Battle After Another? Let me know down below in the comment section so we can continue the discussion down there. And feel free to check out these videos in the meantime if you haven't already. Till the next time that I see you guys, I'll be seeing you later.